Hello everyone, Coming Clean here. In case you didn't know, I started playing the Skylanders games earlier this year. I knew the first game, Skylanders Spyro's Adventure, was well received, but I was actually surprised about how much I enjoyed it. Is it without its flaws? Certainly not, but that's not what I want to focus on today. In this video, I'm listing 5 great things about Skylanders Spyro's Adventure. I hope you enjoy it. We're going to get straight into the list that comes in no particular order. The first thing I think is great about Skylanders Spyro's Adventure is the level design. We can start right off with the design of the Skylands itself, which even today still looks amazing with its floating islands. It's one of those themes that doesn't make any sense whatsoever from a realistic perspective, but you just don't care because it's so appealing. I mean, who wouldn't want to live in this house right next to a fatal drop? I'm not saying that Spyro's Adventure was the first game to feature this setting, but it's very well executed here. I also want to mention the level design from a gameplay perspective and compare it to similar games. The way I see it, Spyro's Adventure is an action RPG dungeon crawler with some platforming thrown into the mix. In other similar games, like Diablo or Darksiders Genesis for example, the levels commonly take place in caves, dungeons, catacombs, temples and so on. Walls limit where the player may venture on the map. While there are several indoor levels in Spyro's Adventure, most of the game takes place on the aforementioned floating islands. Here the walls are invisible and come in the form of open skies. This is a brilliant way to hide the fact that the levels to a large extent are narrow corridors at the same time as it stops the player from ever feeling claustrophobic. This also makes it possible to give the player an overview of the map at the beginning of many of the levels. This allows you not only to take in the vistas, but it also rewards the perceptive player as you sometimes can see where hidden areas and chests are located. Another thing about Spyro's Adventure that I think is great is the fact that you are encouraged to switch characters. For all my life, I've had a problem when playing video games. I can never pick which character to play as. I've had at least 6 main characters in Brawlhalla, and the main reason I never got fully into BlazBlue Cross-Tag Battle is partly because I simply couldn't pick which character to play as, and don't even get me started on the LEGO games. In Smash Ultimate, I play as Pokemon Trainer as it gives me 3 different characters at once, solving all my problems.
Pokemon Trainer!
You might think that Spyro's Adventure with its 32 character roster would be a total nightmare for me, but it turns out it was quite the opposite, because this game clearly doesn't want you to play with the same character for prolonged durations. You can barely leave the starting position on any given level without Eon shouting that Skylanders of a different element than the one you are currently using are more powerful at that particular spot.
Skylanders of the magic element are stronger in this zone. Skylanders of the tech element are stronger in this zone. Skylanders of the air element are stronger in this zone.
Then you have the frequent elemental doors that can only be opened by Skylanders of a certain element. And I know this is of course partly because the publisher and developer want you to go out and buy more figures, but I have to give them credit for one thing though. Even though the characters do get much more powerful when fully upgraded, the ones on lower levels somehow always feel viable. They have at least 2 different moves unlocked at level 1, and even on the later levels in the game you can drop a low-level Skylanders on the portal and at least get something done before they are defeated. Up until now I haven't even talked about how versatile all the Skylanders are. But I will do that now since it's the 3rd point on my list. From a fantasy archetype perspective, more or less everything is represented here. Birds, tribesmen, ninja, purple dragons, robots, cyborgs, green dragons, dinosaurs, elves, rock dragons, golems, trolls, more purple dragons. The list goes on. I'm not entirely sure how many are like me in this regard, but to me the physical appeal of a character has always been more important than the way they actually play. Camo, for example, turned out to be a very powerful Skylander, but he's just one of many characters I bought simply because I think they look so cool. I'm guessing though that the gameplay aspect is more important to most players, and luckily the variation is just as good on this point. You have your straight up brawlers and blade wielders alongside bowslingers and energy blasters. The game also has you covered if you prefer dynamite lobbers or lightning breathers, and don't forget about the shell sliders and shard droppers either. The different archetypes are very distinct. One of the things that surprised me when I tried this game for the first time was actually that more or less every character has some sort of gameplay mechanic that makes them stand out from the rest of the characters in some way. This is a commendable feat for a game with such a large roster and with a quite simple and streamlined control scheme. We have 2 points left on my list. I just want to mention that it would mean a lot to me if you, when you finish watching, check out my other content as well. And if you like that too, maybe you even want to subscribe since I release regular content about Skylanders and other similar franchises. Moving on to the next point on the list. I just talked about how different the characters are, and this is even further emphasized by the game's upgrade tree. I made a video a while back showcasing my first two fully upgraded Skylanders, Camo and Spyro. Compared to the level 1 version, they are much more powerful, but that is to be expected when leveling up a character in any game. Why I have this point on my list though is because unlocking upgrades in the tree not only gives you new abilities and enhances ones you already had, but it can also fundamentally alter the way you play certain Skylanders. Prismrake has little to no means of dealing with enemies up close until you unlock his third ability. Then you can not only damage them but also push them away back to his optimal distance. Spyro's and Cinder's ability to fly is an equally game-changing mechanic once you unlock it, and Warnado's ability to launch mini-turtles while he is flying makes the move much more useful. It can be simpler things like Camo's upgrade that gives him 2 firecracker vines instead of 1. Not only does it give you the immediate satisfaction of double the damage potential and increased visual stimulation, it also makes you reconsider your positioning since the hitbox of the move has changed. All these different abilities are a nice segue to the last point on my list, the game's many nuances. I've talked about this subject before in my analysis of the Skylanders game's control scheme. Something that is nuanced can be approached and appreciated from different perspectives. This is very important for a family movie like any given Disney Pixar movie, and it's equally important for a family game like Spyro's Adventure. On this point, developer Toys for Bob succeeds in my opinion. You can utilize the character's movesets in many different ways. Many characters have simple but effective main attacks that are easy to spam. At the same time, the other moves nets a higher DPS and lets you handle more complex situations more easily, provided you have learned to master them. A few examples. Characters with a flight ability are slower to turn while flying. If you don't plan your engagements, you are sure to take a few hits, but you also move much faster. Prismake's shards drop at very specific places and won't hit enemies that are too close. It is, however, his most powerful attack, and you need to master its ability if you want to get the most out of Prismake. Camo has a very damaging secondary and tertiary attack, but they lock him in an animation, leaving you vulnerable. This makes timing very important, but it rewards you with very high damage. If you want to approach this game in a simple manner, you can in many occasions just avoid using moves that require more strategic thinking or avoid certain characters entirely, but there is a lot here for seasoned gamers as well. This is most likely part of the game's huge success back when it was released. That's the 5 great things about Skylanders Spyro's Adventure I wanted to talk about today. If you like this video, you are more than welcome to check out my other content as well, and also remember to subscribe for weekly uploads. That's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Coming Clean, and I will see you next time. Take care!